Hello everyone, my name is Diego. We're here at Mercado Studio. We're recording a new episode from Cannes Lion, the festival. And today I'm with Tara Loftis, President of Dermatological Skincare at Galderma, and with Alejandra Restrepo, Director of Mercado Ads Mexico. Today, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff. We're going to be talking about beauty, about data, about marketing and creativity. And I hope everyone enjoys this conversation. Right now, I'm going to start with you, Tara. What I want to know is, you had two really big hits really early when going into Cetaphil with Galderma. It's like a great thing. It was your first weeks and you like okayed a very big project or like initiative, and it was a bet, you know? It went well, and then you doubled the bet, and it went well again. And I would like just to touch in a little bit of what type of insights do you have to do that? Because later I want to mix it with a part of how do you keep that going and how do you keep that big hits in retail, right? So
Absolutely.
Can you kind of give me a little bit of light on that?
Of course. So I think for some grounding context, Cetaphil is this iconic brand that is so trusted. It's over 75 years old, right? So it's a marketer's dream. But at the same time, there's no playbook for how to keep a 75-year-old brand relevant. And the playbook that I follow is making sure that you show up for the consumer and that you show up with culturally relevant moments, right? And that doesn't always mean that you're going to be super successful when you do that. It just means that you might be adjacent to a culturally relevant moment, be it the Olympics or the Super Bowl, et cetera. But with the Super Bowl, for example, indeed, as you said, my role at Cetaphil, and I was maybe 10 days into my job, and I was preparing my to-do list in my office in Switzerland when I got a notification on X that the teams had been announced for the Super Bowl. And without a second thought, I just scheduled a brainstorm, thinking maybe we would shoot something fun in the office, or maybe we would tap a couple of influencers. And one of our agency partners that I had just met showed up with super inspired with a concept and a deck, actually. When someone comes with a deck, you know they're serious, right? Mm-hmm. And came up with this idea that said, hey, there's a moment happening right now in culture where for the first time ever in America, really, fathers and daughters are spending all this time together, bonding over football because their daughters are hoping to get a glimpse of Taylor Swift. This is 10 days before the Super Bowl, maybe, by the time we had this brainstorm. And so we thought, okay, why don't we shoot something that's inspired with this insight? So we made, a lot of brands use a celebrity as the star of a content asset or a commercial. But for us, the star was the insight, right? And that's the great, that's the red thread, we'd say, is that we made people feel something because we reached into the heart of America. And when we revealed the asset, we shot it, just to be clear, we shot it within 4 days of green lighting.
It's already 10 days for the event, and
yes.
It's a Hail Mary.
Yes, but for those of us that work in marketing, and I spoke about this week in Cannes on stage, and it's so funny because I think we're supposed to speak about how we do lots of data mining and we do focus groups and we think that the consumer is going to receive this well. The truth is that for those of us that have been doing this a long time, you just know with every fiber of your being when an idea is going to work and you get super excited about it. And so I greenlit this idea in this meeting. Within 24 hours, we were casting, setting up operations. Within 4 days, we had shot this asset in New York and New Jersey. We had casted a real father-daughter duo, and then we revealed it on social media, and we went to bed. And when I woke up, we were the number 5 trending topic on X, and this was before Cetaphil had an X account. set up. And so I immediately started messaging my team.
Like, what are they gonna tag?
We need to update the cover photo, etc. And so we very quickly worked with our legal team and with X, and we have a very successful X account now. but I think for that, and my mom messaged me. She said Maria Shriver is posting about this, saying that she's got tears in her eyes over this asset. And it was such a learning, because so often we talk about our products, and rightfully so, right? We're talking about how to sell our products and be benefit first and solution oriented, but it's okay to reach into the hearts of the consumer. And that's how you can truly build brand affinity. So what started as a viral bet, literally, was something that we spent very little money on. Originally, we weren't planning on putting any media behind it, but because it went viral within 24 hours, we called Dentsu, our global media agency, and said, hey, should we buy at least in one city, And so we did a small buy in Dallas, but it was a test because there are so many brands that are investing 10 to 20 to 30 million dollars on Super Bowl ads. And my learning last year is that you can generate just as much, if not more, earned media with a creative idea. You don't need to try to win with media dollars. And so we were so proud of that. However, it was lightning in a bottle. Right? It was the right moment. It was the right idea. It was the right team.
And you set the expectations really high in your team,
Oh my God, yeah. So that's why for months people started asking us, and our retailers included, right? Because we were not prepared for that influx of traffic in stores and conversation. And so I would say probably 8 to 10 months out from the next Super Bowl, our retailers were already asking us. I think you were included in that Mercado Libre. Are you going to do this again? And I was really hesitant to say yes, because the bar had been set so high, and I hate to be predictable. Also, and from my perspective, if you don't have the right idea, don't do it just to do it. Yeah. And it's been feeling lately like it's like a one-trick pony show. It's and I don't mean this to sound negative at all, because I have just deep respect for all marketers, but so many campaigns feel a little tired, a little predictable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we never wanted to lead with a celebrity, right? But and we never wanted to plan further out, although our retailers would love that. Right. But what was special about it is that it was a timely moment. And so when we decided that we wanted to try again, we knew that we would have to pull an insight from culture closer to the date of the Super Bowl. Otherwise, you risk something that's not relevant, because culture is moving crazy fast these days. Trends used to last a year or months, and now they last days or 2 weeks.
Even a weekend, and then it's over.
Exactly. And so what we did is we decided 3 months out from the Super Bowl, okay, we'll do something. And we decided to brainstorm it at 2 months out. And we didn't quite have the right idea. But as it got closer at this moment when we were brainstorming, we didn't want anything that was too expected. And at this moment, Lil Wayne, is iconic performer from New Orleans, had been on the Rick Bayless show, being really emotionally vulnerable, saying that he was so disappointed that he wasn't selected to perform in his hometown. And we had just rebranded Cetaphil with the tagline for everyone's sensitive skin. And we noticed that Gen Z in particular love the term sensitive. They love to embrace being emotionally sensitive. They're not ashamed of being sensitive. And here's Lil Wayne being very emotionally sensitive on this global platform that he has. And so we thought, there's something here. This is dominating headlines. He's being sensitive. So we called his agent, Fatana Shah at United Talent Agency, And she said, I love the idea, but with all due respect, he's passed on maybe 20 deals in the past week. I don't think he's going to do it. And I said, what if we gave him a platform? What if we bought a spot in his hometown? And so, like, we can't give him the halftime show, but we can give him space to honor his hometown. And she sat down with him. We concepted it. He loved it. And it was actually Lil Wayne that came back to us and said, what if I announced my album drop at the end of the Cetaphil ad? And that had never happened before. And another thing that was really surprising for us was that 60% of his following is Gen Z. And as an older millennial myself, I was really surprised, right? Yeah. And he was a wonderful partner. And we were also really true to ourselves. We made sure that dermatology had a clear presence in the asset. We cast the world's most followed dermatologist, Dr. Manib Shah, in the campaign. And he happens to be a huge Lil Wayne fan, and he's a dream to work with. But it's a if you know kind of cameo.
Yeah.
And it was really successful. We had the most earned media of any brand in the US that didn't have a national spot.
That's amazing.
And so I'm sure there's lots of marketers or shareholders perhaps that might be wondering like if we would ever invest in a national spot. And the answer is no, because we don't need to.
Yeah, you already proved it twice.
Yeah.
And I love that in the Lil Wayne campaign. But in all of these cases, there's like a deeper insight, which is you appealing to the emotion of whomever is watching, but also in this case, the talent itself, like you can see through them kind of, and that's why they get involved, I guess. But how does that impact the part of the sales? Because we talked about earned media, we talked about the impressions, but as you also say, you're really into strategy and so how does that plays out on the e-commerce or the commercial part of the brand?
Yeah, so I would say it's never the exact same every year, but in all my years of brand building and beauty, it's been pretty consistent. When you have a home run around the Super Bowl from an earned media standpoint, we consistently will see about a 10% lift in global sales when it's a real win. And that's meaningful for our brand, like Cetaphil. But for us, we also work with our retailers like Mercado to understand traffic in immediacy, because what we see and Google as well, we see the consumer immediately goes online and they're curious, right? They start searching for the brand, and so for us, that's the real barometer. And so we saw like a 2,000% lift in visits to our product pages over the course of 24 hours.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's beyond incredible, and it keeps your brand relevant. So you need a few of these tentpole moments throughout the year, but it's well worth it for a fun viral bet, if you will.
So when you're having fun at your job, so it's amazing.
I have so much fun at my job.
How does someone or a brand can take advantage of this like surge of visits from an ad perspective, like from Mercado's perspective, that you measure the users, what they're searching for, and how can you take advantage of that?
And particularly for beauty, if you go to young people, actually people really would like to be seen. And to be seen implies that you need to be personalized, tailor-made. You need to connect to those cultural moments that might be relevant. We that live in Mexico, Super Bowl is quite relevant for us, right? But if you speak for someone in Argentina, might say, Super what? You need to connect with those kind of like cultural moments that talk to people. And finally, you mentioned brand analytics and everything that actually goes to the numbers. And for me, what my team is trying to do and what we do in Latin America is to really go at the core of using data across the journey of what a customer buys and what customers are different one to the other. So we have these kind of like audiences that allow us to be kind of like to prepare tailor-made approaches and to let, for example, Tara's team or a creative team to tell a story. storytelling is really important when you are thinking on branding creation. So my job and my team needs to be focused on giving the right data, the right audiences, so you know who you are talking with. You can really kind of like go to this kind of like personalized and being seen approach for the different audiences, and with that impact them in the right way. So that's the way I see it.
Yeah. Perfect. And I know that we're talking about Mexico and Latin America. I know you've been there a while ago. Like, what have you been seeing, or what's going on there that you're learning from, or even kind of taking into consideration and then applying it somewhere else in the world?
I think what was really unique for me, first and foremost, from a commerce standpoint, was the deep respect that the culture has for dermocosmetics.
Yeah.
So Galderma is the world's leading pure play dermatology company. So while we like to talk about all of the relevance driving initiatives that we have, at the heart of what we do, it's science, and it's very serious skincare. And I loved that in Mexico in particular, what I saw was deep reverence for serious skincare within the commerce sector. And I thought that was really wonderful, whether it was meeting with Mercado or visiting the beautiful pharmacies.
Yeah.
In Mexico City. It was there's a full service approach to making sure that consumers receive the best care.
I don't want to be that guy, but can you tell us what's coming?
Yes, I'm happy
Can you
to.
talk about that?
So, we touched on the Super Bowl campaign with Lil Wayne. And so what I would say that was really special about the Super Bowl campaign this year was that we've seen the rise of AI transform the consumer journey. And at the end of last year, this is the context, at the end of last year, we executed a global shopper study, and it was 11,000 people globally that we surveyed to understand what made them want to purchase. And the first and biggest, most critical pillar was HCP, which is dermatologists. So when a consumer globally hears about a product recommendation from a dermatologist, they're absolutely going to purchase it, essentially. Makes sense, right? But the fastest growing trigger influence is AI.
Okay.
And it's bigger than most media channels in this study. And so we can't ignore that. Right? It's disrupted the funnel. And we're seeing that 60% of Gen Zs go to AI for recommendations first. And then they go to other platforms like Mercado or TikTok and look at the reviews or the clips that they see. And then they make their decisions, right? So the only way that we can influence AI is through earned media. Okay. And so for the first time in many years, we're a little obsessed with PR and getting as many editorial placements as we can. And what was a huge win with Lil Wayne, was that we got not only beauty press coverage, but lifestyle celebrity coverage, general news media, but also music.
Yeah.
So we got 3 verticals of consistent coverage. This was the first time Rolling Stone spoke about Cetaphil. So we observed what happens when you partner with people in the music industry, right? And our incredible team in Mexico has dreamed up this campaign called Jusha Flow. And it's based on the, I can't believe I'm talking about this. It's been such a secret, but it's based on the idea that you sing in the shower.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And the team went to the outskirts of Mexico City and built a set that is a Cetaphil shower, literally. And they tapped one of the coolest dermatologists in Mexico, Dr. Pepe, who we love, and to be the host of Jusha Flow. And what they did is they then approached 6 to 7 of the hottest emerging musicians and artists in Mexico, and they come on to each episode. There's an interview with Dr. Pepe around their skincare routine, how they loved Cetaphil, how they love to use Cetaphil, and then there is a tiny desk style concert that happens. And we have 7 episodes ready to go. And these artists are so talented talented, immensely talented. Dr. Pepe is so cool and engaging, and it's the perfect mixture of clinical skincare science, but also music.
Yeah.
And so it's a way for us to show up where the consumer is, but also tap into this incredibly passionate culture of music, of the music community at the same time. And I love the idea of supporting artists and musicians at the same time. Not everyone is on the scale of Lil Wayne, but we have some credibility as it relates to promoting and partnering with musicians. So while this campaign has been shot in Mexico City, this is something that we're going to give a global platform to.
Okay.
Now, and like I said, this is not the first time that our Mexico team has concepted something that we're so inspired by that we create a global platform out of it. So
How do you... Is this somehow how you've always taken decisions, or like that's your modus operandi, or is it something you've learned in the last years?
that's a great question. It's actually the opposite of my MO, because oftentimes it makes sense. It's very logical to take a learning like that and think, okay, well, sports is fantastic, so we should do more with sports after we really had a successful Super Bowl initiative. But that doesn't mean that it's right for us.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I'm a brand purist. And so while I'm also a culture vulture, like I'm constantly scrolling and seeing what's trending all around the world. And I live in Switzerland, so that's work, okay?
Yeah.
So because what's trending in Switzerland is not what's trending in Mexico or in the US. I'm always asking myself, would this make sense for us, right? So working with Lil Wayne is fantastic, but that doesn't mean it's right for the brand.
Okay.
But what is right for the brand is two things. It's dermatology, and it's also the fact that Gen Z is our design target.
Okay.
And so the thought that Gen Zs care deeply about music, it's a huge part of their lifestyle, and there's so much passion behind it. We thought, can we merge the two things? Like, why not? And what my MO is, though, is to be chasing white space, to do something that nobody else is doing. I think the second that other brands are doing what you're doing, it's over.
Okay.
For years, I was investing significantly in red carpet prep, or whether it was in color cosmetics or it was in skincare. I remember going to makeup and hair agencies and being one of the first brands to ask to sponsor artists for skincare prep. And at that time, it was really unique. We partnered, in my last role at Kendo, we partnered with Adele, for her skincare prep. But now, guess what? It's 6-7 years later, and everyone is doing that. So when you go to journalists to cover it, it's less special.
Yeah.
So I think we have to constantly be asking ourselves what's next.
Okay.
And I think it's cool to do something that our competitors aren't doing.
Perfect. It's a trend 2025 and the rest of the years to take risks.
Yeah.
But how can we take risks? And this is for both of you. I'll start with Ale right now. How can we take risks on creativity, on doing these new things, avoiding what everyone else is doing, but without risking, lowering the amount of risk there is when reaching these audiences or trying to appeal to new ones?
So I think risk movements are part of our daily decisions as leaders, like in general. And what I have seen, I think, of course, I work for a company that one of their kind of like cultural principles is taking risks.
Okay.
So that taking risks are kind of like take risks that that make sense and that are not kind of like hindering what you are at the core. And I think something that Tara mentioned, that it's kind of like what's good for the brand. What she mentioned was basically what are at the core that I don't want to change, that I really would like to embrace. Having said that, I seen one of my clients, a large brand in Latin America, took a risky decision actually to make some moves with very young population, so Gen Z. And we decided to go with a format that we have never done before, lives. And we use kind of like formats that can be bold and criticized, but we also know that appeal to some cultural moments and like a population or an audience that we really would like to tackle. And the result was great. So actually at the end, we have 5x impact kind of like compared to the category because we were able to do it. So we are using lives, like just a little bit of it. And for example, in Argentina, we wanted to go for skincare for men.
Okay.
We're Latins. Like we know that that's kind of like a topic that it's trendy, but it's also difficult to position. There will be some cultural things that might tie them up. And it was fantastic. And actually, the way we did it was bold itself. We also have some things that we have done in Mexico. And actually, we launched our music platform in Brazil to actually speak to the Gen Z population. So definitely, I'm thinking that we can do a lot of things together. But beyond that, I think that's a little bit about being risky, but also making sure that you really use kind of like the best information you have to really tackle the with a purpose. So that's more or less what I see. And I think risky decisions will be taken all time. Just make sure that you are not hindering what is at the core of what would you like to have.
Perfect. Do you want to add something to that, Tara? What help you the risk?
Absolutely. I think that the magic, you mentioned earlier about like, how do you take these moments and bring them to life at retail? And I think the magic is in the partnership at retail. Now we can anticipate, right?
Okay.
So, and now we've had 2 years of successful cultural integrations around the Super Bowl. So now we're able to have conversations with our retailers like Mercado Libre and say, hey, we don't know what the concept is going to be yet, but trust us when we say we're going to do something relevant in February. Can we book space?
Okay.
Can we buy the media in advance? Can we reserve a homepage, et cetera? Can we do a push notification? Can we create a range of clips around this just to reserve it? And now the answer is sure. We trust you, but it is such a miss to not pull it all the way through on the commerce side. That's the other thing about Gen Z. They're shopping in store too, as well, or they're tactile. They want to experience. So you've got to show up everywhere where they are.
Perfect.
And I think that's sorry that I'm interrupting you, but I think that's a point that I think it's not minor. So what I have seen, for example, from Mercado Libre's perspective, we have like 1.5 billion moments of intent that we have on the platform on a monthly basis.
Okay.
Monthly basis. It means that based on search, awareness, like everything that you can have, we can contact people. But you need to find the right way to contact them because some of them want to touch and to go and see, and that's why lives make a lot of sense. That's why the clips, the information that you may have, but also we have partnerships with our brands to really be also off platform. So we just launched a partnership with Google that allow us to be in 3,000 places like in France, but it also kind of like can allow people to go and see, and then they will decide where to shop.
Absolutely. And we can be strategic and we can disrupt at a brand level, but no one understands the consumer like our retailers do.
What's one counterintuitive approach you have to your work? That might not be the obvious one, and I would like to hear that from both of you.
I think, my counterintuitive approach is to not be afraid to be a little analog. And I mean, look, like I loved spending time with Alejandra this week and with you. And that's what's special about Cannes Lions too, is there's something that's magical that happens when you connect in person. Yeah. So we can be as digital as we want. Mercado Libre is the perfect example of a digitally native platform, but we need to do what we can to stay connected to people IRL.
I do believe that long term needs to be more important than the short term, because you are really a partner with your client. So for my team, sometimes it's counterintuitive when I say it's not about the short term. It's about what's kind of like the right decision in the midterm. And I ask them to be a lot much more kind of like going through what the client needs, understand the strategy, taking the right decisions, and also understand very well the product. So even for senior managers, head of units, I ask them to go deeper to the product, to even set up a campaign, something that a trafficker does, because it's the only way they can actually go to a product team and ask for new features. This is the only way when a client is asking for something, they know it would work or not. And I think that this kind of like idea of long-term, mid-term, it's what I think it's the decision that I typically have on my daily basis on the trade-offs.
Absolutely. And you're just doing an incredible job with deep cultural relevance and how you connect with your consumers. So I'm in awe of everything that you do, and I'm excited about all that's to come in Latin America.
Perfect. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Alejandra. And thank you, everyone, for watching this episode of Mercado Ad Studio in Cannes Lions. We see you next time.